So 2023 has been a real interesting year for movies. It seems like late in this year we've had this string of really good films, which kind of gives me hope moving into 2024. And I definitely wanted to finish this year off with a positive review, and that's why I avoided Aquaman 2 at all cost. That, and I could honestly give two shits about that movie to begin with. What I really wanted to see for my final review of the year was The Iron Claw. And let me just tell you, it did not disappoint. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it. Do it!
The Iron Claw is the true story of the inseparable Von Erich brothers, who make history in the world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. Through tragedy and triumph, the brothers seek larger-than-life immortality on the biggest stage in the world of sports. So growing up as a professional wrestling fan, the name Von Erich was the stuff of legend. I actually remember my dad telling me stories about the Von Erichs because they were a little bit before my time. So I was aware of some of the hardships that this family faced, but I didn't really understand the extent of it until I watched this film.
I'm in a glass case of emotion!
The idea that the Von Erich name is cursed is a central idea of the film. And a big reason for that is every time this family seems to get a little bit ahead, or something positive happens, something tragic happens almost immediately afterwards, and it brings the entire family coming crashing down back to Earth. Now, I'm not going to get into specifics, obviously, because this is a non-spoiler review, but let me just say this family is put through the ringer, and as you're watching it all unfold as an audience member, you can't help but feel this cloud of dread that's hanging over this family throughout the entire course of the film. You get to the point where you're basically just patiently waiting for the next terrible thing to happen.
I'm in danger!
But to be clear, it's not done in a shock value kind of way. They give you time with these characters for the most part, so you actually care about what happens to them. I know that's a foreign concept in modern Hollywood for the most part, but believe it or not, it does still happen from time to time. And even if you don't necessarily have a connection with each individual character, the family dynamic that's portrayed in the film is what makes you care about what happens to them overall. And that dynamic is very believable. The sense of chemistry and brotherhood between these characters is organic, and it really helps you to get invested in the film.
I like it a lot.
We also have this overbearing father figure, whose brand of tough love is rooted in his own failures as a professional wrestler. He's basically pushing his sons really hard to uncomfortable levels, just so they can accomplish what he was never able to do. And let me just say, this is the type of character that's very easy to dislike, and that lets you know that the writing and the acting are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But throughout the course of the film, they're playing with this idea of, is the family actually cursed? Or are they just pushing themselves so much that they burn out and start making bad decisions?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
I have to give major props to Zac Efron, who plays Kevin Von Erich, who's essentially the main character of this story. And I don't think I've ever seen Zac Efron have such a layered performance as he does in this film. I definitely think he's the most complex character of the brothers depicted in the film, because on more than one occasion you see him kind of wrestling with the idea, pun intended, of whether or not a life in pro wrestling is the thing for him. He's also the character that carries the most emotional weight throughout the film, and to me Zac Efron did a great job as an actor shouldering that burden.
Why do you cry?
Jeremy Allen White as Kerry Von Erich was also a standout. And this is the Von Erich brother that I was most familiar with, because he's the one that went the most mainstream when I used to watch. My only issue is that I wish we could have spent a little bit more time with him as a character, so we could actually see what he was going through, because all of that is kind of glossed over towards the end of the film. But I also understand why that wasn't included, because there's only so much screen time. I was also pretty impressed with how the sport of pro wrestling was portrayed in the film, because to me it really shows respect for the business And it also makes all of that easily digestible if you know absolutely nothing about pro wrestling. Honestly, it's easy to dismiss what these guys do as fake, but the film very accurately shows the emotional and physical and mental toll that a job like this takes on a person. And it's all for the sake of entertaining people. It's a very unforgiving profession when you really sit down and think about it.
I demand a little respect.
Wrestling fans will also notice some recognizable names sprinkled throughout. Names like Dusty Rhodes, and I even caught a Ultimate Warrior reference. One scene in the film also features the dramatization of a Ric Flair promo. Now, if you've never seen a Ric Flair promo, then you won't have any idea what I'm talking about right now. But some people on the internet are complaining that this role was severely miscast based on this scene. It's a small part, but Flair is such a larger-than-life person and character. I can see why some people felt a bit underwhelmed by his portrayal, but honestly, it wasn't a deal breaker for me either.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man!
What struck me most about this film was the ending. It's an emotional gut punch of epic proportions. Of course, we feel the extreme sense of loss and tragedy because of all of the bad things that happens to this family. But it's what and who is left behind after all of that, and how that's portrayed, that really resonated with me. Let me put it this way, if you watch this movie and don't feel something, I'd be questioning whether or not you have a heart.
You're dead inside!
Overall, I think The Iron Claw is the type of movie that I'd like to see more of out of a studio like A24, who you all know that I think is pretty hit or miss most of the time. But these type of too unbelievable to be true, actual real stories are just prime for adaptation. I wouldn't even mind seeing some more pro wrestling adaptations in the future. The story of the Von Erichs, I think, is a story that deserved to be told, and shout out to everyone involved for putting it together in the most effective way possible. This is a great story with great performances. It also has a great heartfelt message about the importance of brotherhood and the risks involved when you try to push yourself and your family to limits that normal human beings probably shouldn't experience. The Iron Claw is easily one of the best movies of the year for me, and more than deserving of yet another Please Palpatine.
Good.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.